What's going on, y'all? Machiavelli Mills TV. So look, y'all. DC Young Fly had a homegoing ceremony for his woman and the mother of his three children. I think it was today or yesterday or whatever, but I saw the footage today, right? And so it's a lot of speculation. People are looking at the fact that DC Young Fly, when he's speaking about his woman, I don't know if it was during the service or after the service or whatever. When he's talking about her, why isn't he bawling, crying? Why isn't he, down and seeming distraught? And why isn't he seeming like his world is turned upside down at this service or ceremony for, the mother of his children, right? And some people looking like that's strange, that's crazy. Did he sacrifice his woman? All this type of stuff. Y'all know them sacrificial stories go along in the entertainment industry, especially when it comes along with black folks, right? And I want to offer a counter argument to that, right? Listen, y'all, people grieve differently. Despite how you feel you would grieve about situations, everybody grieves differently. You can't tell a person how to grieve, how they should be acting, how they shouldn't be acting, so on and so forth. Um, Case in point, man, I'm gonna tell y'all a personal story that happened within my family. My mother has been married twice. Her first husband, right, my stepfather. He passed away from a heart attack. He died having a heart attack while he was driving in traffic. He had already dropped my mother off, and then he died on his way to work, right? He had a heart attack in a car. And so, when the news first broke and everything, my mother was emotional. She was distraught, right? I'm talking about calling us, crying her eyes out, crying her heart out. She was crying at home, all of that, right? Crying at home. We prayed about it. She prayed about it. We praying together, all of those things. By the time the funeral came 2 weeks later, um, my mother was not like distraught and crying as hard or loudly as she did when she was at home when it first happened and when she was going through that grieving stage before the funeral occurred. At the funeral, she shed some tears, but she wasn't like all, just all falling out and all this type of things, right? And some people may look at that as strange. She was listening to the preacher's word and taking it in, to for her healing process, right? And because she wasn't bawling and all in the front aisle, all over the seats and all of that type of stuff, because she didn't have to get carried out of the church, that doesn't mean she wasn't grieving my stepfather. That doesn't mean she didn't love him. That doesn't mean she wasn't hurt that he was no longer with us. She was devastated by that. But by the time the funeral came, she had made peace with what had happened. She prayed about it. We prayed about it together. Me and my sisters, my brother, we helped to uplift her. My grandmother, grandfather, everybody, we all showered our love on my mom, and we got through it. But by the time the funeral came, man, she was at peace. She had talked to God about it. And even though she was devastated in her heart, even though she was crushed by what happened, it hurt her soul. She had prayed to God, and so she had already, asked for consolement for consoling. She asked for peace. She asked for understanding during that time period. So by the time the funeral came, by the time the funeral came, she wasn't how one might expect her to be. Right? Now she wasn't smiling or just acting like everything, like she wasn't like acting like she was at the club, but she wasn't like outwardly devastated as she was when it first happened or when she was grieving during that time period over the weeks before the funeral. That don't mean she didn't love my stepfather. So what I'm saying is that DC Young Fly, how do we know he hadn't already went through that process? He seems to be a very spiritual brother, right? From what I'm hearing him talk. Probably come from a church background, as a lot of folks do. Black folks do in general, especially in the South, right? Growing up a Georgia boy, I think he's from Atlanta. So, a lot of the churches, he probably had a strong spiritual, as despite him being funny, acting a fool for the public, the brother probably is spiritually in tune with God. And so he had already probably talked to God, not his God, talked to God about, all the things that was troubling him in his soul and his hurt and his sorrow. And by the time he got to the service, he wanted to treat that as a homegoing, as a celebration of the life for the beautiful woman that the mother of his children was, right? And so he doesn't have to be like, I mean, balling and rolling around on the ground, his grief doesn't have to look like a scene from a movie. And I'm not disrespecting anybody who was like that, because I was like that at certain things. My brother got killed. I was like that, right? My father was in a way you've never seen. I've never seen my dad at all. He lost his father and his brothers before that. But when we lost my brother, completely different. He lost his baby, his child, right? So, but again, I've been like that. But by the time I'm saying everybody is different. Everybody grieves differently, man. And so DC Young Fly, he wanted to treat it as a celebration of the life of his woman that he loved. And it doesn't have to be him, it doesn't have to be him running around and just crying and sobbing loudly for everybody to see. He may do that in the comfort of his home. And at this ceremony, he may want to stay strong for his babies, his daughters. Because they lost their mommy, their mother. You only get one mother in his lifetime, y'all. You only get one. One mother, one father. You know what I mean? And so he probably wanted to stay strong for them. But yeah, man, that brother probably was at home crying his eyes out when the news first broke. He probably was. I know he was devastated. I know he was hurt. But by the time the ceremony came, he probably again talked to God, made peace with the situation, and asked for the strength and the strength and the courage, ask for healing, man, so he can carry on and be a father to them babies who need him in a way that they probably never needed him before. So you can't judge him for not being so sad and so distraught in the way that you thought he would be, man. People grieve in different ways. I keep saying it. But yeah, man, you don't know how people are spiritually connected to where by the time they get to the funeral service, they treat it like a celebration and not like, they're not treating it like they did when they first heard the news, per se. So y'all get off DC Young Fly. Stop the conspiracy talks. Stop the sacrificing talks. Cut all that out, man. That brother loved that woman. I know he's devastated by it, but they show their grief in different ways. That brother could very well leave that ceremony, go home and cry his eyes out, right? Behind closed doors where his daughters can't see, where nobody can see. He probably was crying before the service started, right? All of that, you know what I mean? So, but how he chooses to display his grief in front of his children, in front of everybody else, that's his business, right? He didn't have them talks with the Most High, with God. He didn't. I'm sure he probably didn't even spoken to his mom or spiritual leaders in the community. Talk to them all about all of these things. So at this point, he's giving everything to God, and again, I'm sure he's still grieving. He's still in pain. He's still hurt, right? But at the same time, he is moving. He's asking God for the courage to move forward, as best as he can, so that he can be the best father for his kids, and that he can continue to raise them in a way that his woman would want him to do so. You know what I mean? So all that, man, quit judging folks, and grief just looks different all across the board, man. So that's just what I wanted to say. Machiavelli Mills TV, I'm out. Peace.